Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So I finally gotten the weapon comparison video ready for Itto. We will be comparing Serpent Spine with Whiteblind as well as Redhorn Stone Thrasher, which is a signature 5-star weapon. The rest of the weapons I'll probably add on if there is interest in them, because right now Whiteblind and Serpent Spine do have the highest interest based on the comments from my Math Guide 1.0, 1.1 and 1.2 videos. There's so many versions because I had to update it based on KSI animations, based on the latest changes for Itto and his weapon as well. Okay, and if there are further changes coming, there will be a 1.32. But as of now, this weapon comparison guide will be Math Guide 2. So if there are further changes that affect it, then it will be 2.1. You get how it goes, okay? So in this video itself, I actually have worked out the math for Serpent Spine and Whiteblind in terms of the refinement comparison, the constellation comparison, etc. But I'm not going to go through those. Let me know in the comments if those are actually items that you'll be interested in. But for the sake of time, for the interest of time, I'll just quickly run through each of the weapon, what are the assumptions and what are the CR targets to go for, before we jump into the weapon comparison. Okay, so first off, Whiteblind. So Whiteblind is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go through how Whiteblind works. Just bear in mind that I've already factored in the stacking in my entire combo string, the entire burst duration, and these are the figures. Not to worry about the figures. I will also run through them in detail in the weapon comparison. But when I do the weapon comparison, I'm not going to compare every single row here. I'll mainly be focusing on these three, and also not every permutation. I'll focus on what is practical, and I'll talk about that later. So first off, assumption wise, I'm assuming defense bonus from burst stance is dynamic and not snapshot, since miHoYo's trend for new characters have been dynamic for some time now. The same assumption is done even for Redhorn, by the way, just I did not mention it previously. Okay, Whiteblind CR target. With Whiteblind, it's impossible to have more than 200% CD, crit damage, without 100% CR, crit rate, without C6 Itto. Okay, without C6 Itto, you can't target 100% CR with Whiteblind, because Whiteblind itself does not give you any crit rate or crit damage. Even C6 Gorou is insufficient. Okay, C6 Gorou give you 40% crit damage when you have 3 Joe characters in your team. Even that is not enough. So the math will be based on 75% CR target for C0 and C1, and 100% CR for C6. Wait, sorry, I think it should be 67. Yeah, sorry. For Whiteblind is 67. It's for Serpent Spine that is 75. Because Serpent Spine has crit rate on its substat. Okay. So that is for Whiteblind. Just a quick note on the CR target. You can only target 67% CR target. Or rather, I should say, you can only target 100% CR on C6. And if you don't have C6, I would recommend to target 67%. At least that's what my math is based on. Now, on to Serpent Spine. Okay, before we start, again the same assumption, defense bonus from burst stance is dynamic, not snapshot. Serpent Spine, I'm assuming that you are having max stats all the time. All my figures are based on having max stats all the time. Obviously not always feasible. You need to wait for max stats before starting any domain or challenge. This is something that if you use Serpent Spine on your main, you know what I'm talking about. If a challenge requires to sort characters in later, like the Hyakunin event previously, then you can't get max stats, right? Because enemies are there. Unless Itto is the first character. Also, Itto's 11-second burst implies that you need to have 11 seconds of constant shield art time to maintain max stats, which should be feasible for most scenarios, although there are some where you can't, as an example, certain attacks that hit really hard. And although Gorou can constantly pull crystallized shards for you, just bear in mind that the crystallized shards, the base health of crystallized shields is very weak. It's 1851 at level 19. 1851. That's very low. And the only way to make it stronger is through EM. So that's why it makes sense to try to get a bit of EM on Gorou. Now do you see why there's an allergy for the N on the weapon banner together with Staff of Thoma? Okay. Okay. If you saw my previous shoulder comparison video, Zhongli has a shield that is about 24k equivalent. 24k. Compare that to 1.8k. You know what I'm talking about here, right? Although you do get crystallized shield, I think every 1.5 seconds. Yeah, so that helps, but just bear in mind that without Serpent Spine, it's not an issue. With Serpent Spine, it becomes an issue because you can't afford to get hit even once. The moment you get hit even once, you're gonna lose your DPS. Okay, you're gonna take a significant hit to your damage. Okay, I'm mentioning all this so that it's clear that I'm being generous with Serpent Spine here, by assuming that you always have med stats. Obviously, it's not the case, and there are more caveats that I'll talk about in the weapon comparison. In particular, the way that Itto is designed is really not helping Serpent Spine. Well, we'll go into more detail on that later. So for Serpent Spine, it's also impossible to have more than 200% crit damage with 100% CR without C6 Itto. But with C6 Gorou and 3 Joe members in team, it is achievable. Thus, the math will be based on 75% CR target for C0 and C1 with C2 plus Gorou. Bear in mind that C0 Gorou is fine as well, it's just that C2 plus Gorou ensures that for the entire burst duration, Gorou's burst lasts. If you don't have C2 Gorou, the last 3 seconds of Itto's burst, you will not have Gorou's buff, which again is a hit to your DPS. And we will also target 100% CR for C6 as well as C0 plus with C6 Gorou. So the good thing for Serpent Spine is that because he has crit rate as its weapon substat, with just C6 Gorou, we are actually able to hit 100% CR. Okay. In a special note, although C0 and C1 without C6 Gorou is based on 75% CR target, if you are able to get absolutely perfect artifact upgrades and rolls, 100% CR target can actually give you more damage. But I have to take a realistic approach here to tell people to target for 75% CR, and you can gradually work towards your 100% CR with absolutely perfect upgrades, which means that everything goes into crit and crit damage. Okay, not a single roll goes into attack percent, defense percent, or even flat defense. That is the only way your 100% CR at C0 and C1 without C6 Gorou can have higher damage than 75% CR target. Okay, just a special note for people who are interested in that. Okay, now the damage figures for Serpent Spine is as follows. So at the highest permutation, C6 Itto with C6 Gorou, you have 932k. Naturally, it's lower than Redhorn at its highest permutation. But I think a lot of people, the number one question that people will be interested in is whether R5 Serpent Spine is better than R1 Redhorn. And I'll do that in the weapon comparison next. Okay, so this is the weapon comparison. A good thing is that I managed to squeeze all the figures into one view like this, so that you will always be able to see the figures. This column is Redhorn versus Serpent Spine. So this is the percentage difference where Redhorn is 32.5% better. Okay. This is Redhorn being better than Serpent Spine at the same refinement level for all these different categories. Example, C0 R1 with C2 plus Gorou, C1 R1 with C2 plus Gorou, C1 plus R1 with C6 Gorou, or C6 R1 with C6 Gorou. And then you have for R5 the same permutation. And this is only for talent levels 999 or 912 if you are C6. Okay, which means base talent level 999. This is to make the comparison easier. Okay, although I have the figures for 666, talents 666. But it doesn't make sense for 666 comparison because when you have C6, there's no way you will have 666. Okay, so Redhorn R1 versus Serpent Spine is over here. You'll see that now the figures are negative, which means that Redhorn is always better than R5 Serpent Spine. Sorry. Okay, I'll go through more details for that. For Whiteblind, you have the Redhorn versus Whiteblind and Redhorn R1 versus Whiteblind, which is R5 Whiteblind over here. And likewise, you will have Serpent Spine versus Whiteblind at each refinement level, as well as Serpent R1 versus R5 Whiteblind. Okay, these are the figures if you want to understand how to look at them. Let me provide my analysis. Redhorn naturally performs much better than Serpent Spine at same refinement level, with the difference pulling ahead at R5 versus R5, since Redhorn skills better. So you see here you have a range of 21 to 32, but it's 39 or 38 to 54. Because Redhorn skills better. It's as simple as that. Serpent Spine actually doesn't even have 100% skilling, in the sense that its weapon effect it does not get doubled, which is to be expected because its weapon effect is really good. Okay, we are talking about 30% bonus damage at R1 versus 50% damage bonus at R5. Now the sad thing here is that R5 Serpent Spine also does not exceed R1 Redhorn, which is at the same time kind of expected because right, Redhorn was buffed recently. These are the figure. This is the percentage difference. Even at C6 Itto with C6 Gorou, which is this figure, providing 110% crit damage to compensate for the overall lesser crit rates, crit stats in totality, and coupled with the additional damage bonus from the Serpent Spine stats, R5 Serpent Spine is still 11.4% behind R1 Redhorn. Redhorn's weapon effect, the direct defense bonus, and the bonus damage based on defense is the biggest reason. Why do I say this? Because out of curiosity, I actually tried removing the direct defense bonus to compare. And R5 SS at C6 Itto and C6 Gorou will actually do better by 2.7%. There's actually a scenario where R5 SS can outdo R1 Redhorn, but only when I remove the direct defense bonus. So why is this? Also, what can we conclude from this? Basically, both the direct defense bonus together with the bonus, the damage based on defense for Redhorn is very substantial on its weapon effect, which also recently got buffed. It's the reason why Redhorn would do better than R5 Serpent Spine. And this is the whole reason why MiHoYo would buff Redhorn, because they make sure that their signature 5-star weapon is better than a bounty pass weapon that has been there forever. Okay? But that being said, I think that the damage percentage difference for Redhorn versus the Serpent Spine is actually still pretty good. Just don't expect R5 SS to be better than R1 Redhorn. That's what I can say. But it's still actually pretty good. Because if you think about it, I'm going to reference R5 Catch again, because I know everyone knows that R5 Catch is a great 4-star weapon, right? R5 Catch is 27% behind R1 Engulfing, and 58% behind R5 Engulfing. If you look at R5 Serpent Spine, this is the type of percentage figures we are looking at R1. R5 Serpent Spine versus R1, this is the type of figure. You can even achieve 11.4%. Even if you don't achieve 11.4%, because this is real territory, even the most F2P setup per se is 21.8%. It's still better than the catch, which is 27%. Okay? And the 58% we have 54% as a comparison. So still better than the catch. But the catch is fully F2P. Serpent Spine is not. But I have a piece of bad news here. The important caveats to bear in mind for Serpent Spine. All of the Serpent Spine figures are assuming you maintain max stats without dodging and you are attacking all the time. The more you dodge, the lesser your DPS, especially since you need to wind up into the charge attacks. Because unlike Noelle, when she's using Serpent Spine, you can afford to dodge and just attack again. But for Itto is different. You need to wind up into the charge attack. There's a bit of winding up before you start your charge attacks. And not to mention you lose the 30% attack speed boost. This is the biggest obstacle to Serpent Spine being good for Itto. Because Itto is designed such that the moment you stop your Kesagiri slashes, you are gonna lose your 30% attack speed boost. This is one of its passive. Okay? So that's really bad. TLDR, don't dodge. The moment you dodge, you lose DPS. So you may say, okay, you don't need to dodge with shield. But the thing is, you should still dodge the heavier attacks, or attacks that require you to move. Example, Abyss Mage Electro Ring. Okay? The only shield that can face everything is a full HP or almost full HP fully stacked Zhongli. Now, you may also choose not to dodge, you may choose to take damage. Your shield, if you don't dodge these attacks, you will eventually take damage, especially if you're only relying on Gorou's Crystallize, and you will lose stats. If you're not using Serpent Spine, you can afford to take the damage, you can afford not to move. Okay, this is what I'm trying to say here. You can argue that you need to dodge with Redhorn as well, but with Redhorn, I can afford to take the damage, because Itto has high defense. Assuming you have C4 Gorou is going to heal you. Itto is not going to get interrupted in his burst even without shield because he has increased interruption resistance. Even without shield. Which means Itto can continuously attack and maintain his 30% attack speed buff and get healed by Gorou and not lose any damage bonuses even if he gets hit when you're using Redhorn. Do you now start to see how the MiHoYo's design of Itto and Gorou is coming together, their synergy? As opposed to Serpent Spine, which has a very terrible condition. I shouldn't say terrible condition, I should say it has something that is not going well for it, which is Itto's passive on the 30% attack speed boost. By the way, I'm not hating on Serpent Spine. It's the best BP weapon in my opinion. I have R5 of it too. But I'm trying to be realistic and objective here. These caveats are important to note because they can cause that 11.4% difference to be even bigger. Especially the moment you lose your shield, you will have to do two things, okay? One, you dodge and you lose your 30% attack speed boost, or you get hit and you lose your SS damage bonus. Either way, this percentage difference will just pull ahead. So it's especially tough for Serpent Spine for Itto. But the good news is the fact that R5SS is only 11.4% behind his R1 5-star signature weapon with caveats is a testament to how good R5SS is. Which kind of makes sense too, since SS can only be purchased with cash, and R5 is time gated. You need 30 weeks to get R5, okay? That's more than half a year. That's about 7.5 months. So TLDR for Redhorn versus Serpent Spine. R1 Redhorn is better than R5 SS by 11.4% at C6 Itto with C6 Gorou, 21.8% at C0 with C2 plus Gorou. Once the caveat conditions are not met, or if you have to dodge at least once, this difference will be even bigger. If you are a seasoned Serpent Spine user, you know that you are dodging. Okay, you are dodging to maintain your stats. The problem here is if you dodge once, you're gonna lose DPS. Not just from the dodge, but from more, and I'll talk about that later. Very shortly I'll cover it. So final considerations of whether to pull for Redhorn if you already have a R5 SS. The most important thing, do you have a setup that allows you to not dodge even once, and yet still maintain the 5 SS stats? One comp I can think of is maybe Zhongli plus Gorou plus Thoma. Plus Itto obviously. But the problem with this build is that yes, you have a whole ton of shields, but I have concerns on the energy, because Zhongli's energy generation is really bad. Gorou, we don't know how it is like yet. I mean, even Albedo, I have concerns on energy, honestly speaking. Although everyone keeps saying that Albedo, Gorou, Itto is like the best comp, that's fully looking at Albedo contributing sub DPS. But if I take the look at energy angle, I actually have concerns on Albedo. Albedo's energy generation is better than Zhongli, but still not that great. In fact, Ningguang is the best. Ningguang is the best energy generator or battery in a full Geo comp, especially if you have C2 Ningguang, because that allows you to cast her Jade Screen twice, which is high elemental skill, which grants you energy. Okay, so the whole reason why I say you can't even afford to dodge once with Itto is because the whole concept of losing the 30% attack speed boost once you stop Kesagiri really works against maintaining the SS stats. And I know this because I did a frame analysis of the Kesagiri slashes. The build up of the attack speed from 0 to 10 to 20 to 30, as well as the winding up of the charge attack, It's the whole reason why, even with his attack speed boost, he's only able to achieve 2.1 to 2.2 attacks per second in the entire duration when it's average out. In his entire burst duration when it's average out. Because those really take time. So try to think of it this way, okay? The moment you dodge to maintain the Serpent Spine stats, you lose DPS from dodge time, which standard, okay? Dodge time not that bad, about 0.5 to 1 second. The winding up into Kesa time, since it's a charge attack, that's gonna take a bit of time, especially for a Claymore character. And then building up your 30% attack speed again. Compare that to, say, Noelle, who only suffers the DPS loss from the dodge. Why is it a DPS loss? Because you dodge and you're not attacking, as simple as that. But it's a very short duration, you can afford it. But for Itto, it's different. I lose my dodge time, that I could have swing another attack because Itto also attacks a lot faster than Noelle. I have to wind up again, I have to build my 30% attack speed again. It's not great for Itto. Serpent Spine, the way Itto is designed, it kind of feels like it's purposefully designed against Serpent Spine so that MiHoYo can sell their new weapon. As evil as that sounds. But at the same time, if you think about it, it's good that they are making his weapon relevant. Another approach will be to wait and see what else will be on the Redhorn weapon. If you're considering whether to pull for Redhorn, if you already have an R5 SS. I will do a review video when it's out too, so no worries about that. I can't rule out the possibility of more changes since Itto's release is still pretty far. We are talking about like 6 weeks away. But nerfs that will allow R5 SS to do better are unlikely in my opinion. Because MiHoYo knows how Serpent Spine performs, okay? They know that they need to sell you a 5-star weapon that is better than Serpent Spine. At least for that specific character. I mean, just look at Yola. Serpent Spine doesn't do great. It's not great for her because you are focusing on getting her stats up. You don't want to be dodging. Okay, so it's a different concept. That's why I say, moving forward, MiHoYo is just going to release more and more characters with their signature weapon in a way that is going to make Serpent Spine not as great. You have to accept that fact. It's just natural. But regardless, Serpent Spine will still remain as one of the strongest 4-star weapons. That's for sure. Okay. Alright, so I've talked on enough about Redhorn versus Serpent Spine because I believe that's one of the most interesting things to most folks. Now, let's talk about Redhorn versus Whiteblind. At first glance, Whiteblind looks great for Itto with its defense substats, defense percentage, and attack percent stats, right? But in comparison, Redhorn has 88.2 crit damage. Do you know how insane 88.2 crit damage is? It allows Itto to go for 100% CR on top of all the different bonuses from its weapon, and it's very, very significant, okay? The defense bonus as well as the damage based on defense. If you saw what I talked about in the Redhorn vs Serpent Spine, you know how significant it is. So naturally, Redhorn is mostly better by about 52% and up to 81% if we are talking about R5 Redhorn versus R5 Whiteblind. If we compare R5 Whiteblind to R1 Redhorn, it's still about 41 to 43% difference. If at C6 Itto and C6 Gorou is about 28%, because of all the crit damage provided by these two constellations, the weapon's crit damage has a bit of a diminishing return per se. So this is the reason why it drops. But if we look at the damage figures alone, R5 Whiteblind is performing very well. Okay. Use this figure as an example. Okay. C0 R5 with C2 plus Gorou. If you're not too unlucky when by the time you get a C0 Itto, you may be able to get a C2 plus Gorou. Okay. 420k at C0 R5 with C2 plus Gorou is an average of 42k per second. Can your Noelle do 42k per second with R5 Whiteblind right now? I don't think so. Because Noelle's attack speed is about 1 attack per second. So unless your Noelle hits for 42k each hit, it's unlikely. Okay? I don't think even my Noelle doesn't hit 42k. Yeah, she doesn't. But Noelle has a great AOE that's really very enjoyable to use. This is one of the reasons why I love Noelle as well. That swinging and hitting everything at the same time is just so enjoyable. Okay. But if you want to look at raw DPS, for sure, Itto is higher, even with a R5 Whiteblind. So this is the reason why this is what I'm trying to say here. Yes, Whiteblind pills a lot in comparison to Redhorn, but it does very well as a full F2P weapon. Okay. Next is Serpent Spine versus Whiteblind for the folks who are undecided on whether you want to get a Serpent Spine. As a cash only weapon, Serpent Spine also performs better than Whiteblind. R1 Serpent Spine ranges from 6 to 15% better than R5 Whiteblind. This is the figures here. So at C0, for example, at C0 C2 plus Gorou is 6.6%. So Serpent R1 is 6.6% better. Is that 6.6% enough for you to motivate you to buy the bounty pass and select Serpent Spine? That's for you to decide. But I'll say this. Bounty pass is not just a weapon. There are a lot of resources. Okay. I know most people think that the logging, the what's that called? The Welkin. The Welkin is like the highest value. But for me personally, if I look at the number of resources that BP gives, I actually like BP more. And I'm probably gonna get trashed for saying that, but yeah, I like BP more for that. Because I'm not just looking at Primo Gems. If you look at Primo Gems, then yes, Welkin is for sure the better option. Okay, no doubt about that. Okay, so anyway, slight digression. So it's up to you to decide if this percentage is something that you would want to spend a bit of cash on to get a Serpent Spine that will do better than Whiteblind. Okay. Now let's talk about my personal choice. Before I share what's my personal choice, bear in mind, I've already provided all these figures objectively, as well as the percentage differences, for your comparison and reference, as well as my analysis tool for your decision making. So it's up to you to decide how you want to do it. For me, while R5SS has a very respectable difference compared to R1 Redhorn, considering the caveats and the fact that the entire loss of 30% attack speed boost once you dodge, personally, I will pull for Redhorn. Okay, even though I'm a wheel that's trying to cut down my cost now, I will still do objective spending. Okay, I don't C6 R5 every single character. Look at my Kokomi. I didn't pull for that donut weapon as well. Okay, but bear in mind, all three weapons do perform very well within their respective categories. We have the wheel category, the dolphin category, and the F2B category. All three weapons do very well in their individual categories. Okay, so you can look at the damage figures and compare against your existing DPS for reference. Any of your main existing DPS characters for reference. The figures divided by 10, the figures here in black, divided by 10 will be the average damage per second. Because this is in his burst duration, the first second is his burst animation, the remaining 10 seconds is his actual DPS output. So every 10 seconds, in the full 10 seconds, he's dealing this amount of damage. All the black figures here. So divide that by 10 and compare that to your existing main DPS to decide if you want to go for that specific weapon with Itto. Alright? Yeah, one more most important thing. Spend within your means. Okay? Always spend within your means. Alright, so that's the end of my weapon comparison video. Unfortunately, it went on a little longer because I spent a lot of time talking about Serpent Spine's caveats. But I thought it was important to understand that dodging is bad for Itto. DPS wise, anyway. So to dodge to maintain Serpent Spine stats actually works against you because you lose DPS as well. It's pretty bad. Alright, so I've talked enough about that. So thanks everyone for watching. I'll do a poll after this video. Let me know what is the next video you'll be interested in, or at least the next few options, so I know what is the interest level like. And I also kind of want to do Thoma videos, even though I'm very behind on Thoma. I mean, I know Thoma is very near to us now. I still have not done Thoma weapon and artifact comparison as well, although I did mention what are the artifacts to go for in the Thoma math videos. I just did not do the comparison yet. Alright, so if you really like the content, remember the video and click subscribe for more. Bye!